There's been a lie that has been going on for centuries when it comes to people who are creatives, who are multi-passionates, who are innovators, who think way outside the box. I'm talking my artists, my performers, my writers, where, yeah, you could do that for a living, but you're also going to be broke. It's not responsible. You're not going to make a lot of money. It's not very serious. In fact, people won't take you seriously. You may have been told this in your childhood where it's like, okay, that's nice that you want to be a comedian, but you need to have a backup plan and you still have to go to college. And listen, I'm not saying it's not smart to always have other options and not have all your eggs in one basket. But because this narrative has been literally been passed along by generations for centuries in cultures all over the world, the paradigm has shifted. This is not true. This does not have to be true, to the point that I wanted to make sure I brought on a guest that embodies exactly what I'm saying. It's not just me saying it or bringing on another guest who is saying what's possible. I want you to hear evidence of what's possible. So, my friend and a remarkable, breathtaking singer and songwriter, Sonnet Simmons, and yes, that really is her real name. She is the definition of someone who was born with a gift. And she's going to share with you her journey on how she nurtured it and how she didn't nurture it, how she lost it and how she got it back again, and how she monetized it while making sure she still stayed true to her craft and still loves it. Because that's another thing, right? Well, if I start making money off it, then I'll lose its luster for me. Then I'll lose my creative edge. None of that has to be true unless you make that to be true. And if you're familiar with Kesha, I'm an OG Kesha fan. I mean, Kesha even said about her, I was entranced by you. And we're going to play a clip of one of her latest songs, and you will see very quickly what I'm talking about. She has a very unconventional childhood. She was raised in a cult up until the age of 5, and her sister and her mother then escaped. She got an opera scholarship to UCLA, where she studied all different genres of music. And she's been on a major TV show. And you would think, well, that's why she's making money off it. No, just wait until you hear the interview and all the twists and turns that it takes, and how she has multiple ways that she makes money off of doing the thing that brings her so much joy with an undeniable talent that she has. And she pays it forward by teaching so many other creatives how to do the same. I'm so excited for you to hear this episode. And most importantly, her new tracks. Wow. You'll see what I'm saying. Why I'm beyond thrilled to have this conversation with you. One, I adore you.
Oh, I adore you.
You're so humbly honest about your story. And I attract a lot of creatives. You guys are whack and are very, head in the clouds, dreamers, multi passionate, shiny object. And my Virgo groundedness, I have an ability because I still have that creative side of me, but I know how to like hone you guys in and like refocus you.
Thank
And
goodness for you.
I mean, you guys are wild and I love it. And it's like, but I can also see how that can trap you in that, almost that trap you in that beautiful mind of
Mhm.
all the things that you want to do, and then it never gets done, and then the shame that comes up about that and the frustration, and then you're watching other people who are doing it, and you can do it and you want to do it, but then starting becomes a whole nother bag.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I want to hear about this because you are a creative and you work with a lot of creatives now. Give some insight on this creative mind. What the hell is going on in there?
Oh my gosh, what an interesting question and topic. Because, yes, first of all, we're not taught creatives could be cultivated to have some focus on one thing. Like, how can you monetize that? How can you use those creative juices, spirits, energy, passions in your, like, as a strength rather than starving artist? Like, we're taught to be an artist, to be a creative, you're going to be the starving artist. Like, it's a tough road. Like, it's really hard. You got to just put yourself out there and hope somebody finds you. And then you have to be discovered by the people who like aren't creatives so that they can put a shining light on you and save the day. And I wish the conversation that I was taught, great, you're creative, like the strengths that come with that. You're going to have a million ideas. We pick one idea, we pick 4 ideas, we like run with that. Here's some ways to monetize that. Here's some ways to get out of your own way. Because I love how you're like, oh, it's hard to take action when you have so many things going on in your mind. And then taking that action, if you don't take the action, the shame cycle starts. And then you're just like perpetually shaming yourself and not taking action and not doing anything with these beautiful gifts that you've been given to share with the world. And when we can kind of get out of our own way and start to figure out, well, what's the path that I can take? How can I really lock into a path? And that doesn't have to be the end all be all path, because we can change our mind at any point, but we do have to like start on a path. What's my plan for these next 3 months? As long as I like, so recently I put out a record, my energy is going into that. I'm not starting another business. I'm not doing this. That's my energy right now. And certainly we always have a million plates that we have up in the air, but I feel like the more that we can borrow from your mindset of practical business strategies and apply that to the strengths of a creative, the more we can get out of our own way and just do what needs to be done. I totally get what you're saying.
I want to hear, I know some of your story, but it's so important for people to hear the messy ride of it.
Mm.
Because it touches on so many points. It's like, well, I love singing or whatever it is, acting, whatever your craft is that you love. And there's all the things tied to it. Well, I would have to go and be on one of those shows like The Voice or a Shark Tank, or I would have to be well connected, or I would
Mm-hmm.
have to live in a big city or a city like Nashville or Los Angeles. And we
Mm-hmm.
can keep stacking all
Mm-hmm.
these stories. I have to be a certain age. I
Mm-hmm.
have to look a certain way. And I gotta say, isn't a little bit of that still true or not at all anymore?
I think it's as true as you allow it to be. So it's true if you subscribe to that and if you allow yourself to, like, it's the mindset, what is actually possible, what is for me will be for me. I just need to keep showing up, sharing my gifts, showing up past like, but I'm too old, so let me hide, because certainly we've all done that, or let me apologize, or let me feel embarrassed to show up because I am older now. All the stories that you said we can stack upon ourselves. So I think it's as possible as we allow ourselves to believe that it's possible. When we can see something further than what we've known to be true, then we can start to believe that something more is possible for us. I think for my story, I was just reflecting on this the other day, and something you brought up made me think about this. Is I really thought, well, it's youth, it's beauty, and you have this voice, and like that's it. And you have to be pretty, you have to be thin, you have to be young. And I struggled with all of that, really never loving myself, liking myself, never feeling all the things that I feel like our generation struggles with, and feeling I had to be young. So when I hit 30, I just went into the deepest, darkest depression because it was all over for me. Like 23, I thought it was over, but I was like borrowing these extra years. And what I realize now as I'm putting out music is like the only thing I thought I had to offer my audience was a pretty young, nice, sweet girl. And so what do you have to share on social media, or what do you have to share? You're like, here's my like naked body, or here's this cute look. And now I get to share like let's dissect people pleasing. Let's look into healing ourselves. Let's talk about these deeper conversations through music, through creativity. It doesn't have to be music, that you're actually here to share your gifts for. And so I'm a little off topic, but I feel like those like the evolution of our story really allows us to share in a deeper way.
And it's like what we convince ourselves is necessary in order for us to have the thing that we say we want, we end up seeing confirmation bias of those things,
100%.
right? So then if we use the example of, oh, you have to be of a certain age and have a certain look in order to get signed record deal or make any money as a musician, or you have to have a gazillion social media followers to do that, then all you're going to see are like the Taylor Swifts of the world and not see all the other very successful artists that are of all different ages, all different sizes, all different looks.
All different ways of making money. And they can have a family, or they can live in the woods somewhere. They can live on an island. Like there's just so many ways that it can look when we allow ourselves to let go of what we think it's supposed to look like, or the little picture of what we taught, which is why being as a creative, you have to put on the hat of being an entrepreneur. You have to start taking, like, sitting in the CEO role of your life and your career, and not keep handing out all your power and keys to these people that you think are the people that are going to lift you up and take you there, because they're not, nobody's going to climb on board until you've started making your train move a bit. Anyway,
it's really tough though. I just have coached so many of you guys, and it's tough. I think it's tough because there's a belief that if you're a true artist of any kind, right? Like you can't also be a business person, a business savvy person, someone who looks at the dollars and cents of it all, because somehow that means you're like a sellout or you're not a true creative if you're also really focused on monetizing the thing. And I call bullshit on that. Where the hell did that even come from anyway? I mean, I think that's like hundreds of years old. It's gotta be.
It's, yeah. I mean, I feel like the shift is we are given gifts. Everybody's given gifts. We're all given these beautiful gifts to share with the world. And so if you're going to starve and not, like, the more money that you make sharing your gifts, the more you can share it, the more that you can create this abundant life to allow for sharing it in another way. And so that mental mindset wall that we hit for, like, selling out or feeling like we're not a true artist if we're not scraping by or in the dark, drunk, writing poetry, you really limit who you are allowed to change and who you're allowed to affect, because you're not able to really share on such a wide scale. So it's almost a selfish, self-fulfilling prophecy when we buy into that. And I don't know where it comes from. I couldn't answer that question, but I certainly know there's a lot of pressure to not sell out. And there's all this pressure, like even in music licensing, I do a lot of music licensing, and it's like, oh, but are you a real artist? Like, but you're just writing jingles. I'm like, no, they're licensing my real songs. Like, it's not. And even if you were writing jingles, like, that's cool too.
That's
and
creative.
So, like,
I love a jingle. Living spaces.
How much are they making? Like, how much money are they making?
So I know all of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know where that comes from, but I'm always surprised when I hear it. Like, it's time to change that conversation, and it's time to really take our power back, because it's small, it's bigger than selling out as an artist. It's about giving your power away and playing small and feeling like you're not worthy of making the money or worthy of the success or worthy of people seeing you. Because being an artist is like, we want to be seen and share our art, but also we want to hide at the same time. I'm tired of being so nice. I'm tired of being so good. And I'm done with being polite. Just everybody else feels so damn good. Bang, bang. Ooh, I'm coming for you. So there's this, like,
and you can't have both. It's like, you need the visibility, and you want the visibility so people can experience the art and the thing and the beauty of it, but yet also don't want to be seen.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're working with fellow artists and even the stuff you have to work on within yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what are some ways to start unpacking that and managing that? Because that is, wow, is that a push and pull? When you really, if you put that down on a piece of paper, that leaves you in stuck land.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if I felt like in order for me to make money doing this and for my craft to reach a lot of people, I have to be highly visible, yet I have a fear of being seen and I want to hide. How could you ever how could it ever happen? How could you ever manifest it?
Mm. Two things. One, break it down to tiny, tiny steps. What can you do today, tomorrow? What can you do weekly? What can you do? I mean, this is how I coach people. Like, we don't have to think about the big steps. We need to make the little steps. We need to start building that muscle. And then it's also like we need to start bringing in some mindset work because you're going to hit those walls even in little tiny steps. And what are you going to do to move through those dips? How are you going to, who are you surrounding yourself with? Having a community, having a coach, having mentors that can help you through those moments. So little steps and taking time to fill yourself up because I think a lot of people also feel like they get drained. I guess there's like a energy drain of putting yourself out there or feeling like you're getting judged, and that's being judged. That's your own inner, that's the work. This is the window in. And I think you're similar, like thrive on inner work. Show me where I get to dig in. Like I want to dig in there. And to me, those are all little windows of places to dig in. And I know a lot of people, you have to take it slow. You can't just dive on into everything. And the best way to take it slow, in my experience, is step by step, a little step. Where do you want to be in 3 months? Let's break that down over the next course and having some accountability because we certainly can get in our own way. Accountability. I mean, I'm a coach and I still need accountability.
I have 3 coaches and a
yeah,
therapist. Like,
yeah, 100%.
I literally say it all the time on the show. Like, I would not get anything done. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, very little would happen. Um, Not because I'm necessarily someone who's so scattered. I'm just kind of like I'm not a type A person. I'm a type Z or type C for chill. Like, I really am. I mean, I can like, but I could snap my fingers and 3 hours have gone by and I've really not done anything. And I'm totally pleased with it. Right. If I want what I say I want, though, I know I need to have like when you go to a bowling alley and for kids, they put up like the bumper rails so that it's like your ball's not constantly going in the gutter. You can at least have some fun. It's like I need bumper rails.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Me too. And I knew that going
Otherwise,
into this record release.
otherwise we're in the gutter.
Yeah, well, totally. And like, I mean, for me, I'm like overthinking what picture should I put up there? Well, what about this? Or should I? So for this last record, I called a friend and I was like, I know what I need to do, but I need somebody to give me deadlines and to check in. Am I doing it? Because otherwise I'm like, I put everybody ahead of me, like, oh, well, this needs to get done or that needs to get done. And this is the vulnerable stuff that gets sticky, where you're up against yourself, where you see where you've held yourself back before, where you see the past stories and the inner beliefs and the limiting beliefs come up. So that accountability is like, I love that I'm definitely not a type A either. And it's really nice to celebrate that. I feel like I've had a lifetime of being like, I'm trying to be type A, but
because we're taught, truly, we have messaging that in order to be successful at whatever, you've got to have some of that like type A persona. And then I also got some belief that you have to be an extrovert on top of it. So if whatever we're stacking that we believe you have to be in order to get the thing, and if that's not innately who you are, now once again we're in Stuckland, USA, right? Like I'm not that, and you have to I believe you have to be that in order to get the thing. So why would you even start?
Why would you even start?
And it's a lie.
It is a lie.
taking a quick break from this incredible interview to remind you to harness the holiday season's natural, nurturing, abundant energy to attract more wealth and success into your life. I have created my Season of Abundance guided walking meditation series, and this is absolutely free to you. All you have to do is be in some sort of motion when you're listening to this series, and you will see very quickly how you'll be able to release what is holding you back energetically and set yourself up to be in that magnetic vibration to take advantage, to multiply the beautiful energy of this season and take you into 2024. All you have to do is go to projectmewithtiffany.com/season of abundance. projectmewithtiffany.com/season of abundance. And it's also my link in bio on Instagram and TikTok at Project Me with Tiffany. When you started early on pursuing your dream of being a music artist, how old were you, first of all? Were you like really young, like 8 or something?
No, like 3.
Oh, shit.
I mean,
okay.
3. I was like, I'm going to be a famous singer by the time I'm 13. That's what I would tell everybody. 13, I'm going to be a famous singer. So
you
that's
knew
the only
early,
thing for me.
and it was growing up. This was also supported, right?
Oh,
certainly. If I recall what you've told me, like I mean, first of all, your name's fucking Sonnet. If
It's
your
meant to
name's
be.
Sonnet, you're raised by a fellow creative, okay? And likely in Los Angeles. So she was raised in an area and by someone who definitely supported your dream, right? So most people don't have that beautiful blessing of having, their dream being supported. A lot of people were told, okay, that's nice, sweetie. That can be like your hobby, or that can be like another thing, but you can do that, but you've got to go to college first, and you've got to do this and that first. So did having that strongly help you in pursuing this dream of yours?
It helped, but it also, I didn't have any answers. It was like, yes, you're supposed to sing, go for it. You'll figure it out. It wasn't like, oh, let's do some research. Let's figure this out. Let's meet the people we need to meet. We moved around a lot as a kid. I was raised by a single mother, and it was the thing that I was praised for and could fit in quickly to new schools. So it became kind of like, this is who I am. This is what I do. But it didn't make it easier as I hit college. I went to college just because I didn't know what else to do. And I was like, I was a very good girl. I got very good grades. There was no, being raised by a single mom, there's just no space to, you can choose 2 paths. Don't cause them any extra stress or cause them extra stress. And I was not going to cause her any extra stress and just like be very good and live in this little space. So I often wish that there was somebody who had been like, well, what does that mean? You want to be a singer? What are we going to do about it? I didn't have that critical thinking.
Like you didn't have the momager mom who was like, well, let's set up some meetings for you. Okay. That's an interesting review of it, because I know a lot of people, including myself, I'm saying, oh, well, you're raised by someone who supported your dreams, and that's beautiful. But then the missing component was there was also no direction.
Yeah. It was like, you'll figure it out, yeah. Which was no fault of her own. She didn't know, and that was great. But I didn't have that. I did have support in, you'll figure it out and you don't have to pursue something else. But I just didn't have that like creative, like thinking behind it, the business thought, or the skills, the life skills of, if you don't succeed, you just get up and try again. And I feel like that is something I've had to learn older. If I didn't succeed, I was like, that's not for me. And I would just give up. And I did that for half of my career.
Do you think that you did that behavior because you're so naturally gifted at something that came genuinely easy to you? Not saying you haven't had to take a lot of lessons and work your craft, but let's call it like it is. Those of you guys watching on ProjectME TV on YouTube, like, I mean, obviously you're gorgeous, right? You fit the mold. You haven't had the pleasure yet of hearing her sing, and we're going to make sure that all the links are in the show notes and in the description, and you can go over to her Instagram as well. I mean, I've had the pleasure of hearing her in person, and it like brought me to tears. I mean, you are you, everyone has verbally, without a fucking doubt, and non-verbally reinforced your entire life. You have a gift. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So you got that reinforced. You said it helped you fit into school. And I remember in school, like, there's always the one girl, right, who like got the lead in the plays, was the person, right? And it was always like, wow, mesmerized by that person. So because it came easy to you when you and you got a lot of green lights. Yes, 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 easy. When you started facing real world no's, that shooketh you.
Oh, yeah. It shook me to a halt. A halt, run the opposite direction. I don't know what to do with this. I was never taught grit. I was never taught like dig in. I was never, I'll show them. I was like, oh, they know it's a no. So it just shut me down. And I was on one of those reality TV shows, got pretty far. And that, like, I just fell off the planet for a
When you
number of
didn't
years.
win the show.
When
Can
I
we say the
didn't
name
win.
of the show or no?
Yeah. It was called Rising Stars. It was
And
on
so,
ABC.
and you went far, you got past many, many rounds, right? Like, where did you end up at?
From 23 to 10. So I was in
Oh,
the
so
top
you were in
10.
the top 10. This is obviously being majorly televised. Let's back up a little bit. What prompted you to go do the audition for the show?
I thought it was a shoe in to success. I was trying everything. They actually called me, so that was nice because I had auditioned for The Voice, or there's just these huge cattle calls, and how do you kind of break through? This was
So
your
you were
time.
doing all this stuff, like you were still pursuing.
Yeah, I was full on in it. I had a band. I was writing songs. I was performing live.
But you were not signed by anyone
Not
at this
signed.
point.
No,
okay.
Not signed. And really aimless. I was doing all the things, but when you're super busy, but you don't have a direction.
Yeah. I talk about it all the time. It feels like you're productive. And then it also is equally frustrating because you're like, I'm doing all the things. I'm even doing more than these other artists who I've run across in these cattle calls who are getting fucking signed. What's going on here?
Yeah, that was me. It was like, oh, I'm always so busy. But the results were, so yeah. So I ended up on the show. They highlighted our stories. It was a lot of people with a lot of interesting backstories. I was raised in a cult, not raised, I was born in a cult. And so that was really highlighted in there. They brought my mom in. It was a really healing experience in terms of like my mother and I connecting on this. And Josh Groban was the host, and Kesha and Ludacris and Brad Paisley were the judges. And they put us up in the SLS hotel in Hollywood, and like lived there for 3 months. So it was totally, you think
you're like, I've made it.
Yeah. Like you really, you just are like, okay, like it's uphill from here.
Yeah, it's happening.
Yeah.
How exciting.
But it's all a reality show. It's also a reality show. And you need really strong mentors in that to keep you checked into reality and checked into what can you do to leverage this to like on your own, because that's not what they're looking out for. They're looking out for ratings. How can we make this? Yeah. And even knowing that, I couldn't understand what to do to really set myself up or to like separate the heartbreak, as it really felt like the end for me. I was like, if I don't make it, then this is not for me. Like I can't keep going. I've just hit the end of music.
Because you were pouring
everything.
Doing those shows. Take us back to what is it like doing the performances? It has got to be a huge energy expenditure, like whole heart and body.
Well, it was live, and it was a show where you would swipe right or left live. while you're singing. And it
What?
had this big wall. Yeah, it had a huge wall. And so if enough people, I think it was, I don't remember the percentage of people swipe right, the wall is raised and you make it to the next round. And
I would have needed medication. That's wild.
yeah, I mean, it's like there's nothing so grounding. Like I know when I went out there for that first time, at my feet, I was so grounded. I was so in it. I was just so in my craft. By the third one, I'd already self-sabotaged and checked out. I was like, couldn't be seen anymore. This is, what if they don't like me? Let me just check myself out before I get rejected.
And when you say self-sabotage, because obviously looking back, you weren't
Yeah,
aware
yeah.
you were doing it. What were you doing? Were you not like warming up your voice? What did that look like?
I stopped taking ownership of the song that was picked, even though I felt like the song wasn't quite the right thing. I was like, well, I'll just let them pick it. I just remember like flitting and floating and like twirling before I even went on stage. Like I was a little bit, I should be standing ready to go. Here I am. I'm so focused. That's what it takes as an athlete. You're like, okay, you're on your
It's game
starting mark
time.
and you go. And I remember it being game time and me kind of being like, oh, is that my starting note? Like I wasn't there.
You
And
dissociated
totally,
from it.
totally dissociated. And while it was happening, I was like, why are you doing this? But I knew I was doing, like, I could see it's not like me to just like not know my starting note. It was fine because, like you said, like I've spent a lifetime doing this. I pulled it off.
Of
It was
course.
fine, but I wasn't in let me win this race mode. Like just eyes so focused, which, is sometimes what it takes.
And when
Um,
you did not make it, when they didn't swipe on you
mhm.
in that top 10, because top 10 is major out of gazillions of people who went out for the show, you have to remember that feeling in your body, all the blood drain from your body.
Yeah, I felt like it was over. I mean, I said it out loud. I said so much out loud. I remember the producer of the show was like, it wasn't supposed to go like this on it. So sorry.
And what's that supposed to mean? It wasn't supposed to go.
You're supposed to make it further. Like that this wasn't your time to end. And I was just like,
Mm.
I'm done. Like I'm done with music. And I thought I'm going to get married and have kids
And like
because I'm
stuff this dream of yours in a faraway box.
hmm yeah. I didn't stop completely with music. I ended up going into music licensing, which was eventually I found that a few years later, which was a godsend of finding, oh, look, I can have a family and I can create music and I can make money. And I had landed these huge ads and it is really gratifying. That's really awesome. But it took me a while to get to that point. And yeah, I did. I met my husband 3 weeks later. I went on Tinder and I was like, I'm going to find my
So
husband.
you
I'm
did
going to get
more. So
married.
you did the swiping this time.
Yeah, I did. And yeah.
Wow. I didn't know that part of your story. I thought at some point you did get a signed deal, didn't you? Didn't you get a record deal at some point, or someone was going to pick you up, or no?
Different times in my life that has
They
been the
like you got
promise
like
so many
meeting.
times. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
really?
yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
that
many
let's talk
times.
about that because that's important to hear and what that does, especially to even our inner child, right? It's like, oh, I'm getting picked, right? Like I'm getting picked. Oh, I have a meeting. This is it. This is it. And then
Mhm.
it ends up not being it. It's like, how many times can someone take that if you've not been taught to that this is normal?
Yeah, that it's normal. And how can I take the control back? Just feeling so powerless as a creative. I can speak to the musician side. At least this was in the beginning of my career was like the end of record labels don't have all the control as they did. Yes, for these big, powerful artists, but like independent artists have a lot more control of their careers these days. But that wasn't, I didn't understand that in the beginning of my career. And that was just kind of like we were at this crossroads of the record label kind of leaving and the independent artists coming up. And so I just was holding on to somebody else has got the answers, this learned helplessness, somebody else knows better, and I just have to wait to be discovered. And you give all your power away because nobody teaches you to create what you want.
It's like your fate is dependent on all these external factors. Do you feel any of that has a dotted line to being raised in a cult where everything was dictated and told what you need to do and what you can't do in order for you to be accepted?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I kind of indirectly. So I was raised, my mom took us out of the cult when I was 3. My sister was 1, and she left my 2 older brothers in the cult with their dad. And I was raised by a single mother who was really sad. And she had left her 2 little boys, 5 and 7. Like she cried all the time. She hadn't gone to college yet. She was just like a mess. She had been in a cult for a number of years and trying to get it together. I took on the role as the parent, and I learned helplessness. If you don't know, you cry. Like that's what she did. Or somebody else knows the answers. It wasn't my mother who did. And she always was looking outward to find, oh, they must know, they must know, they must know. So that's what I learned. Everybody must know but me. And you're not taught to, well, what does your instinct say? Or what is your opinion? What is your voice? And so indirectly, it has everything to do with that.
Yeah,
It just
because she
wasn't
was
modeled.
taught the opposite being in a cult, right? Like you're in fact purposely manipulated to not trust your instincts, that you do not know better. So then we call it, in my recovery program I'm in, your mom inadvertently, meaning unknowingly, passed that bundle to you, passed that set of behaviors and beliefs onto you.
Exactly. And it's taken a long time to see that, to come to that understanding and recognition where you can say, oh, so that's why I don't want to take the ownership role. I don't want to sit in the CEO role. Why that's so hard for me sometimes. It's a lot easier these days, but it's been hard to show up in that space because it feels wrong. It feels inauthentic. It feels like it just feels exhausting it's like this energy pull.
Interesting. So it's not that it reads as dangerous to your nervous system. It's more so it just is like wearing clothes that don't fit.
And exhausting. Some people are great decision makers. I find myself, or I've had to recognize like, oh, this needs a decision and I need to make it, other than like kicking it down the road. Like I can't make any.
And polling 500 friends.
Yeah, totally. I
I
do
know
not
you
do that
guys.
anymore.
I'm part of the committee. I'm one of the calls from my friends who do this. And my answer now is I ask questions back. And the reality is you already know the answer, isn't it? Like what you're seeking, whether it's conscious or not, you are seeking what someone's saying, yes, you're right. Like that is the right choice.
Yeah. You got this. You got the right choice. You deserve it. All the things that a good coach can help you see. But I'm grateful for the journey, and I'm still on it, of course. Like we're constantly just keep digging in, but it's really interesting to see the dotted line. I would never have been able to articulate that a number of years ago.
Of course not. You have a big jigsaw puzzle to put those pieces together. When things get revealed to us slowly and over time, and I do believe it happens when we are best equipped to handle it, because if it all came at once, it'd be so overwhelming and we'd go into like a dissociative state. What happened when you went through a whole journey? And I remember hearing you talk about it. We were together in person. Your mom, you still had the dream in your heart of having albums out there, even though you are monetizing off your craft and you're getting these licensing things. And now you have a coaching program and you do all these things, but you still have that dream and you wanted to honor it, but you were
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of resistance to
Mm-hmm.
doing anything with it. What were some of the stories you got stuck in?
What's the point? Who cares? You put it out. Is anybody going to listen? What if nobody sees it? I'm too old. So what's the point? I mean, that's basically what if nobody likes it and it's a waste of money and time. I don't have either time or money that I'm going to put into something that's not going to return money back. What's the return on investment in that? And I guess if I'm honest, the biggest thing was I felt really abandoned by music. I felt really hurt by music, by spending a lifetime giving, thinking this was my gift and it not working out. And I just had felt so, yeah. I remember it was just painful to sing. It was so dark.
Did you
And
stop like singing for a while? Like I'm saying for yourself, like for joy, or even like to
uh
your family?
yeah, it just felt like really so painful. It's hard to even imagine that now. But I know like I went to therapy about it. I know what I said about it. So that's how I can kind of remember that this was really true and happened because it seems so crazy, but it like so strange that I would personify something so much as like it was outside of me, like music abandoned me. But I really felt this like soul crushing thing that it had. Where I'm sure there's more to that. But it was getting past that, really. It was probably healing that big old wound that was like, it actually didn't abandon you. You abandoned yourself. And it's time to show up for yourself. And that's it. And like, it's not about somebody else hearing it. It's not about making $1 million from it. It's not about landing the next Volkswagen ad. It's just, what do you need to say? And keep showing up for that. And we will see where that takes you. But
So
all
did
the,
you go into creating these songs for this album, like truly taking the action? And it's a real action to do this, obviously. Like you've got to write the song, you've got to get a recording studio, da 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 da, all these things. Did you go into taking these actions all of a sudden? Were you just like, fuck it, I have to do this or I will regret not doing this? And then you just started going for it?
no, it wasn't it. I have to thank the producer that I worked with. I was recording somebody else's song for them. And he pulled me aside and he was like, what the F? Like, where's your music? We're making your record. And I was like, okay, I'll be here next week. And he was like, this means you show up every week. This means this. This means you're committing. And I think in the past I would have been like, yeah, no, no, I totally will. But I was there and we did it. And I wrote the songs. I was already working on the first song of the record. Like it was in the back of my mind. So the pieces came together. I was like, well, I happen to have the first song. I'm working on it. Let me share it with you. And so that was it.
What
But
divine intervention. What we can't do for ourselves, the universe provides us some help. What,
that
how
was it.
beautiful. And that you done the work to see it for the gift for what it was and knew to follow that and trust yourself to follow that.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Because that would have been a great place to self sabotage.
Absolutely. What
And
does
I
it
think
feel?
about all those opportunities. I've been given those opportunities before. Oh, I want to work with you. I want to produce you. I want to shop your record. Okay, great. And then they just don't hear from me after a little while because, like, I got stuck on the lyric or I felt embarrassed about this. And instead of telling them, I just ghosted them.
I appreciate you saying that. I have recognized that I do that with other things where not if I have like a contract or like a meeting with somebody, I wouldn't do that. But when someone says I'm being pursued by several people for a book, like like a big book, like a book publishing deal. And it's almost like I don't buy it. Like I don't trust it. So like they'll email me and eventually I might respond, but it's a week later, or I even forget sometimes. Like
Totally.
it's like a trauma response. It's like
Mm.
I genuinely forget, which is total subconscious self-sabotage, because I've had people and clients do that with me. Even people for being a guest on the podcast do it with me, and I recognize it. So I'm glad you just said that. I think it's much more common than, it's just not as widely discussed. It's like a hidden behavior,
Oh,
because how
so
that reads to
interesting.
someone is Sonnet doesn't really want it that badly. She's not that serious about music. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not true.
Right. It's you want it so badly, and you have trauma in your life that you don't know how to, that you haven't done the work on, or whatever. It might be the trigger. I know I listened to the Michelle episode with your book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
I've gotten 3 emails from book agents not associated with her, and I've not replied to one of them. It's like,
I still have
and
those
it's like
same.
almost like I'm frozen with it. And I believe that. I know I have a wild story. There's no doubt, just like you have a gifted, beautiful voice. Like I don't think that left you. I
Mhm.
don't think that's what it is. I don't think that's what it is, quite frankly, for anyone fucking listening. I think everyone kind of knows, well, I am good at this thing, or this is my thing. I know I'm pretty good at it, or I have a natural talent for it, or a knack for it. I don't think that's what it is. I think it's like, I don't know. Is it the fear of being seen? Is it I want it so badly and I just can't palate the pain of it not working?
Mm, mhm.
I don't know.
But
What do
it's really interesting that you can see it. There it is, right there in front of you. It's the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
for me to hear you say it on the outside, you guys have to fucking go listen to her music. You'll see within 2 seconds what I'm talking about. To me, it's like, well, duh. I see it in you,
Mm,
where it's like, I mean, you should be selling out stadiums. Like, and I don't have to fucking say that. Like, I see it in you. And
mm.
it's like, but we have to see it within ourselves, don't we? So much so that even when it doesn't work, you get the no again, you get the maybe, you get another no over and over. You see it enough in yourself that you keep doing it anyway.
Yeah. And you take the steps. As I have those same things, like not the book deals, but the same places where I notice I'm like, that's the most important email. And that's the one I'm not responding to. Like, what is that about? And so for me, it's like, it needs to be the first thing I do in the morning. The first, it's not an option. It just needs to be done. And it will take me a while to get to that place where I start to really see, oh, that's the thing you're avoiding. That's the action. Like, how are you going to push through this? How are you, because I don't believe it's possible for myself, but I see you're self-sabotaging, Sonnet. So like, let's just take the action. You got to cross it off the list. And sometimes it's on that list for a really long time. And I still have a list here of things. I still have a list. Yeah.
How does it feel in your nervous system now that you have songs released out for the entire world? Are you kind of checking the downloads? Are you doing any of that ego stuff? Because I mean, no judgment.
Mm.
I can fall into doing that too. Are you like seeking any kind of like external verification? Like what's going on?
Not really. I think for me, because what are 100 streams? They don't pay. It's like, it's nice to know that people are listening, but I feel like I just have to keep reminding myself it's the long game. Like, not one song, gonna put it out tomorrow, it's gonna have 100,000 spins, like maybe, but it's the long game. Like, it's about me putting out music consistently so that I can build a fan base. So people are looking forward to the next, so that I can have deeper conversations about what this record is about. It's about creating the community, the healing women who are finding healing in this music and like can sing it at the top of their lungs while they're driving. And like, that has to be the goal. And I'm not looking for that like I used to. And I know there's such a peace that comes with that. And like I just released a song, I guess, a week ago. And it's this weird kind of day where you're like, well, like, what can I do to make it do more, But all I can do is just show up, allow, and trust that what is meant for me will be for me, but it's not going to be for me if I don't ever put it out, if I don't ever show up. And for me right now, social media is one of those like showing up things for me, like having vulnerable conversations on there, finding something, like throwing stuff at the wall to see what's going to be the thing that people want to talk about, or what angle is going to be the thing that people relate to, or where sharing my story for the first time. And that's where a lot of my energy is going into doing the work, where I show up, where like how to show up on social media, because that's not been something that I have a mom social media that's done really well, but my name was never attached to it. So.
And you told me it's not yet monetized, so it's been free, which is also something so common with creatives. You guys will put out your stuff for free over and over, generous, beautiful over givers, over and over and over and over. And that's fine. But as soon as there's like a price tag assigned to it, it's like a radio silence occurs.
I know. It's really interesting. And it's like, oh, I'm worthy of talking about this and sharing about this. And I have an offer to offer you. And it's so much easier to do when you're kind of like, well, it's not associated with my name or my brand. But yeah, my mom stuff doesn't have an offer. I have it. That is on the list, the to-do list of things to look at.
Speaking of offers, this was a beautiful transition. What is your offer for people who are wanting to actually stop sitting and squatting on their dream and do something with it?
Well, if you are a music maker, I do have a company called 2Indie, and it's all about music licensing. And music licensing is kind of the foundation, but the conversation and the coaching is about getting out of our own way. Like we still have to take the action. We have to kind of see where we self-sabotage, where we have been holding ourselves back. Most people in my community, I have this beautiful community of music makers around the world. Most of them are older, and it's really ready to show up for themselves for the first time, in terms of the dream that they've always had. And it's the community that I need. And so I'm really grateful to have created that. So that is one way, if you're a music maker, that I can help support you or take you on this journey. Come with me. We have a podcast. And yeah, you can listen to my music if you're a recovering people pleaser. You might find some healing in that.
There's a few of those in the audience, just saying, and we'll make sure everything's in the show notes, you guys, and in the description on YouTube. It is not lost on me that this platform that you've built, teaching people music licensing and being able to write for commercials and jingles and all of that stuff, and what you just said about the mindset component, and like a lot of the people that are in there are older, you kind of have to show up and put your stuff in the world. Otherwise, you're out of integrity as a coach.
Yeah.
What great accountability for you.
Yeah. And also very vulnerable, because I've had to be a coach, stepping forward, being like, oh, I haven't done this in a while. And here I am being tested. And here I am like being triggered, or what are being really tested, I guess is the right word, of showing up. And yeah, it's a great accountability and vulnerability. And but it strikes some awesome conversations, because people can really relate to that.
I love this conversation, and I know you listening loved it too. Whether you're a writer, you're a singer, you're an artist, you're an entrepreneur, you're someone who's like, I'm an accountant, but I still recognize this, because I believe we all have something in our heart that we want to do, that we've put in a little box somewhere, and it's there's like a bunch of weights on top of it, which are all these false beliefs and stuff we've picked up along the way. And my hope for you, and I know Sonnet's hope, is that this episode took off some of those weights. And I'm watching Sonnet with one of her kids right now. And oh, this makes me want to cry. What a beautiful gift that they get to see her mama pushing through the vulnerability and putting her music out there. What an incredible lesson for them to see that mom still is showing up for her dreams no matter what. Like, that there couldn't be a better lesson that you're providing for them to see that and witness that. It's freaking amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Because what you weren't taught, you are now teaching them by example.
100%.
That's so
That is
incredible.
the biggest motivator. That's probably been the place that everything changed for me. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and for being you and sharing your gifts. I'm loving your music. It's so validating for me. It's like you're singing to the wounded part of my soul. I've done a lot of healing, but the scars are always there. And that's what your music feels like to me. All my fellow codependents out there.
That's it. That's the word. Yep.
This
Yeah.
is what you want to listen to without a doubt. Love you. Thank you for
Oh,
coming on, babe.
I love you.